Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Styve Golf Podcast. Devin here. We got Shawn with us. Shawn, what a week. What a week in the world of golf. And what a year, honestly, to start a freaking golf podcast. We've just been blessed from the heavens of golf content. And this week was deep, very deep in it. So, but before we get to that, man, how are you? As always.
I feel like I'm trying to catch my breath from the weekend.
Same.
Honestly, it like you said, it has been wild. It's not an exaggeration to say that it may have been one of the most wildest weeks in the history of professional golf.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration.
No, I was trying to think of like, and again, being a little bit newer to, I mean, that's relative term, like newer to golf, but like, I don't remember obviously anything near in my, tenure of golf besides, I think like the Tiger scandal was pretty jarring. And that kind of monopolized all of golf conversations, at least for that I can remember.
Yeah,
But
not
I mean,
yeah,
I don't know of
even
anything else.
yeah, like getting into the obviously like a lot of stuff makes headlines within the golf world, but like this week we started to bleed into the rest of the sports world,
Mainstream.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Sports
so
Center, ESPN,
yeah,
have golf on, as you look down on, PTI and, all around the horn, all these, like that's a hot topic right now, which is pretty wild. And then it goes into some articles written in the New York Times from, very deep political. Obviously, this is very a hot topic on some leaks into politics, which is always fiery. Like I made the big mistake earlier on last week of getting on TikTok, flipping that camera around and just vote. Really, just it was the media day at LIV Golf, and we're just kind of just digesting that of what the heck what we just had listened to of just the most disingenuous answers from all those players that could have ever been offered. And we kind of talked about, right? Just like, man, what these, I just wanted to get people's opinions, and boy, did they give them. Like, I mean, there were some comments. I even got some DMs of just people just firing, man, and surprisingly, a lot in support of this LIV Golf League, and it was very interesting. And like I said, I had a brief opinion on their answers of basically just addressing the elephant in the room of taking Saudi back, fat paychecks for sports washing. And anyway, people just, some of them let me have it on that whole thing. And it was always the common thing was, oh, what about the NBA and China and all the funny and all the money there that's been funneled in and all that stuff. But anyway, I think I learned from that mistake to don't open myself up to to just getting absolutely hammered by some internet trolls. But anyway, it was wild. So I mean, I like literally I don't know where to start just because there's just so much going on, and just like the crazy events are just like so like it's the US Open week. Tiger's not playing. I don't even think Tiger's been mentioned on the Golf Channel today. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. So where do we start in all of this madness?
I mean, I think unfortunately we do have to start with the Saudi golf stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, so many thoughts from me on it. I've been trying to like kind of organize them, like how do I think high level and all of it. And I think where I've settled on is that like setting aside the gross amounts of money and where it's coming from, like just ignoring all of that. It's just I don't think it's good for golf, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, you have to say like, yeah, the live golf tournament, like it worked, right? Like they managed to get 54 holes in, or however many holes they're playing. Like there was a winner. They held a tournament. There were fans there in London. They had somewhat of a production. Sure, it was kind of amateurish, but like, I mean, they hosted a tournament, and within like during the week, more PGA Tour guys jumped over, right? Because like initially it was Dustin Johnson, Phil, Taylor Gooch, and a couple other guys, but
Mhm.
by the end of the week, right, they'd gotten Patrick Reed, Bryson, and Pat Perez, and like I'm not saying like those guys don't move the needle for me personally by
Yeah.
any stretch of the imagination, right? Like I'm fine not watching them play PGA Tour golf again. Like it just doesn't bother me. But at the end of the day, like those guys have made the move. You have to think more will make the move, not necessarily like your big superstars necessarily, but
Yeah.
enough guys are going to make the move that the longer that this goes on, it just waters down professional golf tournament fields, right? Like it weakens PGA Tour events, it weakens the European Tour events. And I mean, it's not like I can't see Live Golf ever having like 48 of the top players in the world playing an event, right? So it's always going to be a handful of solid players and a bunch of guys like you've never heard of. So like all these different tournaments are just going to be a couple of really good guys that you recognize. And like no disrespect to some of these fringe players trying to make it, right? But from like an excitement or a fan viewing experience, it just really makes for a watered down kind of viewing experience, which I mean sucks as a fan, right? Because as a fan, we want to be entertained by the product. And in golf, to be entertained, you like to have the biggest names, best players in the world playing on a fun venue. And
You need competition.
yeah, and so stuff like this with Live, it's taking away from that, right? Where and it's frustrating too because no matter what the people in Live Golf say, like at the end of the day, like they're not doing it about the competition or anything like that. It's
No.
seriously just a money grab, and it sucks that there's enough guys out there that, and I mean, I can't fault them because it's life changing money, and it's, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself. But
Hmm.
from a fan perspective, I feel cheated a little bit, I would say.
Yeah, it's well put. And I have very similar feelings. I mean, it is really hard, like a good point on, and that was kind of like all the people pointing the finger back at me like, oh yeah, because you would turn down that money, right? You idiot. And was just going in deep on me. I'm like, first of all, I never said that. I never said that I would turn down the money. I would hope that I would. I would hope that, I could have somewhat of a conscience there. But I mean, you're talking the money that they're paying, like just Patrick Reed, like Patrick freaking Reed, the biggest goober, like just a total, yeah. And they're paying him like upwards of, I don't even know, it wasn't officially reported, but like 60, 80, $100 million. Like that is just unbelievable. And it's like, I mean, that truly is generational wealth. Like for generations and generations, like that, the Reed family has changed forever. So I get that. But it really is like it just really comes down to if you're willing to take the money or you're not. And it really does like, yeah, it waters down the competition. And I heard someone say, I don't know if it was like the fried egg or KVV, because he was there in London, and they basically just said like it really is, exhibition over competition. And competition is always just so much better. And you have context, you have more at stake, you have the better players. Like a perfect example, I mean, literally the PGA Tour could not have written up the Canadian Open to be any better. Like amazing golf from the biggest superstars. And I mean, just a ideal week for them. And it was weird. Like after watching some of that live stuff, and then the little golf that I was able to watch, it was almost like refreshing. It's like, oh, it's like, okay, they're coming back to the PGA Tour, which really I haven't felt that in a long time. Cause like, we all know we have coverage takes, we have takes on things that the PGA Tour could do to be better. It is just ultimately unfortunate. It was, the Saudis that did it ultimately. But yeah, it was just weird. Like I watched the first round. I'm watching DJ and Mickelson playing. And yeah, there was a lot of golf shots being shown, but that's because obviously they don't have sponsorships and they don't have any partners that they need to worry about, flaunting their marketing material. That's what's just so wild to me. It's like and people have said it, like it's not a sustainable business model. Like, how are you dumping that much money into, again, hate to say it, some of these no names, Patrick Reed, $100 million. Like you're literally just lighting money on fire. And
That's
like,
it.
what return is that?
It's
You know,
sustainable. It's sustainable when you
you
look
have
at
endless
how
money
much they
supply.
have to draw on, right? Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the ultimate, like why I think it's going to, this is a big deal for the PGA Tour because
Yeah.
like they're not, it's two completely different business models per se. Like the PGA Tour has to
100.
operate
Oh,
within like reasonable, like
they got
there's a
so
lot of
much
things they have to take
obligations.
care of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas Live Golf, it's
none.
just, they, I don't want to say like their objective is to blow up the PGA Tour, but I kind of feel like all they want to do is blow up the PGA Tour. And
And in one
I don't
weekend
know.
they have really.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's like, and another thing that's super frustrating to me is all these guys, all the Live Golf guys are saying, we just want to make improvements to golf. We want to change golf, offer something new, yada, yada, yada. My biggest thing is like, well, why didn't you just try to do that on the PGA Tour? Like,
You
did
own the
you
tour.
actually, yeah,
Yeah.
did you actually try to come together and like, why couldn't enough players have gotten together and say, hey, we want to do a team event stuff. We don't necessarily want to have to play 72 holes every weekend. We don't
Hmm.
want to play every week. All this stuff, I feel like they could have brought to a negotiations table with the PGA Tour, but instead, they just, to me, that's where I keep coming back. Like, okay, I think you're just chasing money at the end
Yeah.
of the day. Like, I don't think you care about making the golf viewing product better for people. I think you're just chasing money. And so that's what's frustrating to me to just hear, like, oh, we want to make golf more fun to watch or whatever. It's like, I feel like you could have done that without taking hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know. That's,
No,
I think at the end of the day, that's where I get most frustrated.
no, for sure. And it's a valid point. And it just shows that it really is just it's a true money grab. And just by their answers, it's like it was interesting to see, these interviews of dudes that are very polished that have done this for 30 plus years, like Phil, and long time from DJ and all those Westy and Ian Poulter and Graham McDowell's, like they've sat in media rooms hundreds of times. And even them, like their answers to some of those tough questions were, they were just so disingenuous. They were, I mean, obviously they were given these talking points to keep touching on growing the game and, more balance in your life. And it's just like, I don't know. It really was. It was just kind of like, it was just like frustrating and laughable at times where I just like throw my hands up. I'm just like, these are grown men. Like, and the answers to these are literally like a 6-year-old with his hand stuck in the cookie jar. And it was just like, it was cringy at times. And just, yeah, it really is just kind of like it's really unfortunate. And I, I don't know. There is a lot to say. Again, my biggest thing is just I like the new formats and like the idea of a draft of like a golf team. I like that gets me so excited. Like I can't imagine. Like, can you imagine like Rory, like for you, like your favorite guys, Rory, JT, a couple other guys that you just love, or like for me, like if there was a Spieth, JT, Max Homa golf team, and they were able to like produce their merch, like I would be the first person to buy their hats, buy their polos, and just rep the team so hard. Like that would be such a sick idea to get behind. It's like I like it, but again, it's just like it's so. I mean, it's very poorly done. I mean, you saw the logos and the names. It was just like comical. Like literally my 5-year-old
Microsoft
nephew,
Paint,
little
Microsoft
Jace.
Paint.
Shout out to Jace. He could have done a better job. Like it was so bad. And it's just like, man, if that could be done on a more like polished professional manner, like how sick would that be? Like it got me excited. I'm like, that would be so cool to have a Max Homa JT Spieth team where I could just get behind and root for him. So again, it's unfortunate that it's the Saudis and they have an endless amount of supply of money. And yeah, I think unfortunately, like I really do. I feel like this is like as bad as it will get. Like it's kind of their first operation. And I feel like it will get better and they'll get as more people do it, just like you mentioned, like they saw that the repercussions weren't all that bad. Yeah, they had to answer some tough questions, but so that's why, Bryson and on these other guys started to come over. And I feel like it'll be the same way for a marketing company or a graphic design company to do the same thing. Like, yeah, it's a little scummy to take this money, but this is I mean, I can't imagine how much they're paying those people and all the photographers and they all just look. I mean, if I don't know if you saw some of them, but they just looked like dudes our age just out with a camera, and I'm sure they got paid a fat stack to do it. So I do think it will get better, but I think it, is kind of, it has legs, and I think it will continue to kind of be the future of pro golf, as unfortunate as that is. But I don't know.
Yeah. So, and with that, I mean, I think that leads us into a kind of a good transition of the future. So, really, PJ Tour's, I would say, best hope of fighting this new league comes kind of, it hangs on like two pedestals, really. The first one is whether or not the Saudi Golf League will get world golf
Mhm.
points recognition, and what kind of reaction the majors will have to the players that quote unquote defect, if you
Mhm.
will. So I guess two-part question for you. One, what response do you think the majors, especially Augusta, will have um, to some of these defectors? Do you think they would ever bar them for the tournament, or do you think they'll even get involved? What are your thoughts there?
I don't know. It's tough to say. I think the Masters. I mean, I think there's just so much history, and I think it intertwines so deeply, and the roots are so deep into the PGA Tour that I could definitely see them siding with them on that and suspending them and having them not play. I think the US Open, like the USGA, has kind of punted because I think that they don't know what they want to do. And so they kind of have like, hey, it would be unfair for us to, if you've qualified for it, this is a true open. So if you've qualified, it's not fair for us to say you're suspended for this year, for 2022. What that means, for 2023, 24 and going forward, you know, I I can also see them siding with, again, I just feel like the roots are already so deeply intertwined with the PGA Tour that it would just make sense for them to kind of follow suit on that. Um, I mean, the Open, I don't know, it's hard. Like with the RNA and what that looks like, might be very similar, but I don't know. I think that ultimately, I feel that they will kind of side with it, with barring those players from being eligible. But again, I don't know how much they can control. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much they can control if they do eventually, if LIV does get official world golf points, if they are high enough to where they qualify, then I don't know how much. I don't know. I don't know what they can really do to bar them. But that'll be interesting. But I do know, at least in the immediate future, with none of those points, like those guys are going to be dropping. Like especially a lot of the dudes, besides the Phils and the DJs, like Taylor Gooch, I feel like he's making a big taking a big chance on himself of like, dude, you're not going to do this. You're not going to get any official world golf ranking points for 2 years. Like you're going to drop out of the top 150. You're not going to be eligible. So yeah, again, ultimately, I think that they will side with the PGA Tour and ban those players. But
Yeah, I don't know. I I want to agree with you, um, but I also kind of think it's kind of like a game of hot potato, right? Where all these governing bodies
yeah,
don't want to put their neck out there, right? I
for
think they're
sure. Yeah,
almost kind of punting, like, oh, maybe someone else will come out and have a strongly worded
yeah,
statement again, so then we can just piggyback off them,
yeah,
right? So I
yeah.
don't know. I think the world golf rankings, that's going to be the
Right,
major domino that needs to fall. If they come
for
out and
sure.
say like, yeah, we're never going to recognize this one, um, then I think, okay, the majors will kind of follow suit and say, yeah, we're accepting of what that
Hmm.
decision or whatnot. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting because like just looking at like the European tour side of things, like they're already kind of in bed with the Saudi government a little bit, right? With like
Hmm.
some events and stuff over there. So it's like
Hmm.
they might not be as anti
Yeah.
this whole thing as kind of like the sentiment is over in the US. So it's
Hmm.
like it's and even like you saw on TikTok with the comments, it's like not a universal everyone's against it, right? Like there's
No.
enough people out there that's like, yeah, let them go take the money, and
Yeah,
everybody's money is dirty, so let them go
exactly.
take it. So it's like,
And it's
yeah, I mean
just, yeah.
that's fine, but I mean I want as many good golfers playing in one tournament as possible for a fan, right? So it's like
Yeah,
I don't know. That's
for
where I
sure.
keep coming back to. So it's like, what's the most fair, right? It's like letting guys go reach their maximum earning potential and get money that I could never dream of, or
Hmm.
is it my right as a fan to be entertained by the most watchable product. And it's like, well, I mean, it's not like a circus or whatever. These guys are like paid performers. It's like it's still a job for them, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's such a struggle I have, and it's like
I don't
sports
know.
in general, right? Where it's like, oh, athletes shouldn't. I paid money for a ticket to this game. Why is the athlete sitting out or whatever? They
Right.
owe it to me to play. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they don't.
No.
It's a day job, right?
Yeah. No, for sure. And yeah, I don't know. I agree though. The biggest thing is just, yeah, I go back to that exhibition competition, because literally watching that and like seeing Mr. Schwartzel tap in to win a fat page, like it didn't, again, there's no context. Like, okay, what does that mean besides you getting a crap ton of money like that I do not care about? Like the whole thing with like the FedEx Cup, like there are things on the PGA Tour. It's like how much money they're getting. I don't really care. Like I don't care if the FedEx Cup is worth 15, 10, or 50 million. I don't care about that. It's like I just want to be entertained with it being like a good golf tournament. And I do think like in some small ways, like it's interesting and fun to know like, okay, like if JT misses this putt, it's going to cost him a solo third and it's going to cost him $500,000. Like that's like the only type of money that's like, it's just funny and like contextualizing it to be like, wow, that's really crazy how much every shot really does count in the course of a year. But like, other than that, it's like, dude, I just don't care. And Rory said it best. He's like, I mean, my life is not going to change adding a couple more zeros to my bank account. Like I'm going to continue to do the same things I do. But I guess for these other guys, it is going to change them. But I don't know. I think if they never recognize it on the world's golf stage, then I think the younger guys kind of jump ship unless they're kind of teetering and they don't really want to take a chance on themselves. If they really don't think they can make it, live golf is a great option, because then you can just go play and make a lot of money and you don't have to worry about it. But if they really want to be part of like the whole, dynasty legacy thing of the PGA Tour and betting on themselves, then I think they definitely will. I think live loses some of its steam, but I think you'll always find people to play in it and take their money. So
I just, I don't. Yeah, the whole competition thing too. I'm definitely with you on that one. And mainly, I didn't watch a ton of live this weekend, just sporadic here and there. But
same. Yeah.
like DJ, the big names didn't even scare competing, right? Like
No.
they weren't not even close. So it's like, are they just going to be on cruise control week in and week out, right? Because I mean, they got their money. Doesn't really matter how
Yeah.
they play in the tournament. Like, are they going to be out there grinding? Like, say their first nine on a Thursday is they're feeling a little off. Like, they're just going to mail it in and just
Yeah.
kind of loaf it around, right?
I
It
mean,
just,
if there's
I
anyone,
don't know.
if there's anyone that epitomizes cruise control, it's DJ. So
Yeah, no,
we'll
and that's
probably
why
see a
he's
lot of that.
perfect. Yeah, he's perfect for this series. It's
Yeah.
like if he has it on the first couple holes, maybe he tries to gun out a win. But like if he's not going to try to fight or anything, like I don't know. It just it's tough, right? At the end of the day, and like I said, I'm not going to fault people for doing it, but it just feels like a lot of guys took a very easy way out of
Mm-hmm.
things, right? Which, as a fan of the sport and someone who enjoys watching said sport, like that's something I just don't enjoy, and it's something I can't ever see myself being interested in, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree. Like people were saying, I mean, they ran a comparison on Thursday, how many golf shots were shown in like a 60-minute time frame on the live thing on YouTube, as opposed to, on NBC or whatever on for the PJ Tour. And obviously there was a lot more golf shown on live. But again, it's just like it doesn't really mean anything like the matches. Like I could not care less to watch any of those. Like I didn't even know the stupid quarterback one was going on. Like literally I could not be more disinterested in something like that. And same thing, because yeah, it's for charity, but it's like, again, it's an exhibition. Like I don't care. Like it just is not. Yeah, it's just not meaningful. So I don't know. A lot could be said, but ultimately, like I said, like I like some of the stuff, like some of the stuff that they're doing, I do think is interesting. Like I like the shotgun start thing. Like I do like to know it's like, okay, golf is going to start and stop at this time. Like that's cool. Like that makes it easier to view. But I think there's a lot of, you know, again, trying to sustain that could be a little weird, but anyway, like I like the concept. I like they're doing something different there, and the team thing like is cool. But I just feel like, yeah, hopefully ultimately it will just go to, kind of what Phil said. Like if it just, in 8 years the PGA Tour is better off, cool. And that's kind of what I hope. But I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see, and how, more players go over, and kind of what, and how the suspensions play out and what that really looks like. Cause that's been interesting. I don't know. Did you watch Jay Monahan's interview with Jim Nance?
Yeah, I did. And I mean, that's like, it was nothing to me really. Like, just, he came across just, I don't know.
Very emotional.
He doesn't really have anything, honestly. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing. I think the only thing that they have, really, the only card that they can play is the P, like, and he kind of mentions like they need us, and that's for the world golf rankings. Like they need those points. But other than that, like I don't know. It's like, yeah, we, players kind of, brought this up in the past, and we kind of chose to do nothing with it, and now it's kind of biting them in the butt. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I just, this for the PGA Tour has gone so unchallenged for so long, and I mean they've really had a sweet deal with their whole tax exempt status,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
However they've been able to work that out, and it's just like, I don't know. Complacent is a word that comes to mind, right? Where it's just like,
yeah.
what did we do last year? Well, let's just do the same thing this year for
What
this
we've always
schedule, right?
done.
Let's go to the same courses. Let's set it up the same way. Let's present it the same way on television. Let's do everything the same because that's what we've always done.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I mean, you're always going to run the risk of something like this happening, and just happen to be perfect storm, right? Like, I mean, golf is not the only sport in which you're getting money from sources like the Saudi government,
mm-hmm.
right? It's happening in a lot of other major sports, soccer, Formula One racing, all sorts of stuff like that, right? They're getting these just ungodly sums of cash just infused into it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of shaking up the ecosystem a little bit. So it's like, it wasn't totally out of left field, right? Like you should have had some contingency plans. And that's where I kind of keep coming back on. I just don't really know what the PGA Tour Commissioner Monahan. I don't know really what he's doing, or what their plan is, and they haven't really come out with anything, right?
Yeah,
Like anything they've said is just very much like kind of spurned ex-lover stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
well, you'll come back kind of thing. It's like,
yeah.
I mean,
It's
show me, like,
that's
tell me what you're going to do to improve your product, right? As opposed to
yeah.
like getting all poo
Just
poo at
getting
the
all,
people that
yeah,
have left.
getting all offensive. No, and I think that's, yeah, it's exactly what they've done. Because the only thing that they have done is that quick little interview, and just sending out, the suspensions. And yeah, I don't know what else they have or what other cards they can play. So
I mean, the suspensions to me are pointless. Like, okay, Phil, you're not allowed to play on the PGA Tour. I mean,
you can't
okay,
play in the Quicken
yeah,
Loans.
Phil's rushing back to play in the Quicken Loan tournament or whatever, right? Where it's
Oh,
like, no, miss me with that. These guys that left, that's why I'm skeptical that the majors are planning on barring some of these guys, because I don't know. I feel like the way they moved, I think they left with the anticipation that, yeah, we're not going to be bothered with some of this week in and week out PGA Tour stuff. We're going to
right.
go make lots of money, and
Yep. And then
we're still going to play the
the
four
majors.
crowning global golf events still. So
Yep. Yep. Man.
who who do you think's ultimately the biggest player that jumps over to live? I mean, I guess Dustin Johnson is a fairly big player, but I mean, who do you think
Yeah, I
potentially
mean, I that's already, or that I think will.
that will in the future?
Yeah, man, it's hard because I want to, obviously, now that Bryson has done it, like I do think that is a big loss for the PGA Tour, because as much as we can't stand his antics and his double fist pumps over, at Bay Hill, like people watch that. We wanted to watch it, like, and
Yeah,
he is a good entertainment factor. And also it's like they're stealing all of the villains, man. they're stealing all the dudes that we want to root against. And like that just produces some awesome drama. And PJ Tour just lost all of that. They lost the two biggest ones. And well, three in my opinion. Freaking Kevin Na, the worst. But they lost
I
him,
mean,
Patrick Reed, and DeChambeau. It's like, dude, those are the villains, man. Those are people we want to root against, but they're gone. So
all the like the European Ryder Cup villains too, right? Sergio, Poulter.
yeah, Westy,
These
like, and
characters, right? Yeah.
yeah, and maybe they're just like, hey, well, I think we see the storm coming. We've been able to talk so much smack and make fun of the, USA and their pod systems and their task forces and all that stuff. And because I think they saw the writing on the wall after Whistling Straits that for this foreseeable future, USA is probably going to rock, the Europeans. And maybe that was also instead of like, well, we can always fall back on, well, we had all these good years and then we couldn't play in the Ryder Cup. So, so I don't know. I think that also is kind of like this petty little, they can have it as a scapegoat. But anyway, I don't know. It's really hard to think, like, because who knows what's going on? Who knows what agents are talking to who and what's happening. I'm honestly, I'm a little nervous. Like, I don't think Max Homa will do it, but I know he's very tight with Taylor Gooch. And so it makes me a little nervous. Like, I hope that doesn't happen. I think the only like big one that I can really think of right now that has potentially, obviously Ricky, and I also think Adam Scott will probably do it, which you can say may be a big. I've always liked Adam Scott, and a gorgeous man with a gorgeous swing. So I always like to look at that. But I think that he will too. But I think Ricky is obviously like the biggest one. That just makes total sense. Like he's just, I just don't think he cares so much about golf now. It's just about the paychecks. So I would not be surprised.
I think he'll go. I'm with you on Adam Scott. I think Justin Rose will go.
Yeah, Team Rose.
I do. I think Koepka ends up going too.
Really?
Yeah.
With his bro there on the high flyers.
Like a little Chase kept going. I mean, it's perfect for Chase to go over, but I'm like, if he goes over, like, man, why wouldn't Brooks go over there?
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why Phil picked him, dude. He's wanting to get in his ear, and
it's not like Brooks is out here grinding on some of these non-major events, right? Like,
and that dude couldn't care less about the Quicken Loans or the American Express in Palm Springs, like all that crap. Like, dude, that dude could not care less. So it wouldn't. Yeah, I think that's a good call. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's talked trash to Phil already about it, but I think again he's just kind of I was all for the pip, man. But if that pip is chump change to what he will get.
Look at Pat Perez, right? Like, it wasn't that long ago. He was like, yeah, no, that's stupid. I'd never go over or take their money. That's the dumbest thing ever. And then come to find out, like,
here we go.
Dustin Johnson and the Gretzky family gets in there. He's like, oh, where do I sign?
Anyway, everything's for sale. Every soul is for sale. You just got to find the right number. So, yeah, I know it's interesting, but
all in all, from an entertainment, like, it could set up to be so epic at the U.S. Open. Like, I mean, granted, none of the LIV golf guys are playing well at all. Like, they're playing pretty awfully, like terrible, right? But can you imagine, and we can kind of talk about the Canadian Open as we get moved this way as well, but can you imagine what that atmosphere is going to be like if you have someone like a Rory or a JT or a Spieth, guys that have come out pretty strongly in favor of the PGA Tour, in contention with one of these defectors like a Dustin Johnson or a Patrick Reed? Like, I would hope that the crowd and the atmosphere, right? Like, it could almost be like a USA versus the world kind of Ryder Cup mentality sort of thing. It could be epic.
And I would just love to just have those Boston people just let the LIV guys have it. Oh, that'd be so sick. Because they would be the ones to, I mean, if there's any group of
you're northeastern fans, you're northeastern part of the country, like, in theory that's you wouldn't pick a better demographic. So
that would be awesome. That'd be great. I'm rooting for that regardless. If Spieth or Max isn't going to win it, let's go with just some serious drama. But yeah, like you mentioned, like, I think the RVC, I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but again, I can't say enough. Like, I think that was just so perfect for the PGA Tour. And I also feel like, I don't know, it's kind of cool to think that, I mean, man, Rory could not fit the mold more right now of just the perfect golden boy hero. Like he is just the way he's coming. Cause I honestly feel like those dudes kind of played with kind of like a chip on their shoulder. Like, like this isn't all just about money and we're going to show you that. And I think that it had, it kind of lit a little fire under them to put on a show. Cause dude, they did. And it was awesome. So
And I don't know, obviously me being as big of a Rory fan as I am,
yeah,
it's you can tell when Rory is like gunning for something, right?
yeah,
Right.
it's true.
And when he first burst onto the scene, right, he just kind of had that energy of like someone like just loves playing the game, wants to go out and win, and
Mhm.
just he's gonna go out and take it, right? And then I mean, it's totally understandable, right? Like had a lot of early success, expectations kind of settle in, and I always trying to live up to Tiger's shadow, and that's got to be a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
not to say he hasn't, he's had a really good
Yeah.
career, right? Like he's
Amazing. 21 wins. Like it's one
all-time
more
great
than somebody
golfer.
else.
Yes,
Love
Mister
that.
one more than Mister Norman, as you pointed out, which was just an awesome.
Oh, it's incredible.
Greg Norman catching just strays on a Sunday at a golf tournament. Just it just feels right.
Good
Um,
being
but yeah, so I mean, say whatever you will about Rory, and maybe his career hasn't lived up as good as it should have, which I mean, I don't necessarily think is fair. But anyway, it just seemed like it felt like early Rory days this weekend, right? Where it's just like he just wanted to watch, right? It's so much fun to watch when he just gets it going, takes charge, and the way he plays, just super aggressive
so aggressive. Yeah.
and yeah, it was just coupled with he had guys that were playing every bit as good as him, right? Like, I mean, he exploded out of the gates, and JT kept right with him, right? It was even gaining ground on him, and heck, shout out to Finau, who
Yeah. A 64. It would happen to him, and that's not good enough to win, buddy. Sorry.
so it's like you have the most amazing final group just dueling. I think the three of them played to like 20 under or something yesterday after playing to 23 under on Saturday, right? So it's like had this incredible golf for some big names with awesome galleries at a tournament that hadn't happened in a couple of years, right? So everything sort of fell into place where it's like, yes, this is the PJ Tour at its best,
Mhm.
but I think you also have to take that with a grain of salt because we don't get that every year. I
Rory
mean,
can't do that. He can't do that every week.
it's not even a guarantee we necessarily get that at all four majors, right? Where everyone that's in contention is a big name
Yeah.
and a big gallery, and it's all happening late. It just doesn't always happen, and it's, I mean, a little unfair to the tour, right? Because you can't necessarily set it up so only your big guys are always in contention, and it's always close week in and week out, right? That's not how golf works.
Yeah.
So it's just an uphill battle that they're kind of facing, right? There's going to be plenty of dud weeks, but it just, like you said at the beginning, it was very nice that of all weeks, we were treated to about as good of a showing as the PJ Tour can offer. So it's like, man, hopefully we can take some of that into the U.S. Open and really kind of some of these guys almost like taking on the mantle of like fighting for the PJ Tour, which
Mhm.
I don't think they necessarily have to, but it's
Certainly
cool
kind of
and
felt
it's
that way. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It was I ended up watching a lot more of the PJ Tour than I was planning on this weekend, and yeah, it was some fun stuff. And man, I hope Rory, I just hope he plays well this coming weekend because I think it would be so sick. And just even him and JT though, I mean,
Yeah.
just when those guys are in contention, man, it's fun. It really
Yeah.
is fun.
No, for sure. Like I really hope, yeah, it's like I hope Finau kind of takes that momentum and is up there. Um, I just, and I don't know much about this golf course. Kind of going into that, like it obviously is old school, right? Like one of the first country clubs ever, established in the U.S. Has some rich history, and so I think that from what I've seen of the course, it kind of has like there's a lot of I mean, it's in the Northeast, so a lot of thick trees and some pretty woods, but it also has some awesome like rock cutouts like in some of the holes, some really cool like blind shots. Like I did see an image of hole 13, and it's just a complete blind just over a hill, like and I just don't feel like you see that very often. So I think that it will be a little bit uncomfortable for some of them, but ultimately I'm pumped for it. I think it's obviously you've seen the videos of balls just being dropped on some part of the greens, like on that one, I think it's 9 or something, and just dropping the ball and it runs down off the hill and potentially into the lake. So yeah, I'm excited, and I think it's gonna be awesome, and just obviously the hardest test for the players. So yeah, I'm excited. And I do think, for what it's worth, all this live crap has definitely produced some drama. And I think it would be really sick if there was a live guys and some big PGA Tour guys that are battling it out for just some drama we just don't get as golfers, really, and that more of a mainstream fan can really get behind and invest in. So that's my hope for this week.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. Like at the end of the day, I really just want to see competitive tournaments. A lot of guys having a chance. A lot of guys being able to showcase their abilities, facing different unique challenges on courses week in and week out, getting to sort of demonstrate like their ability to hit really hard shots, right? Just not just a bomb and gouge kind of pitch and putt sort of
Yeah.
thing. And the US Open is typically a good test for that. I mean, you could argue that sometimes they take it too far, let the rough get too thick and kind of make it dumb that way. But I don't know. I just started watching some stuff on the country club, and there's some cool areas, right? There's some cool kickers in the fairways. The greens are tiny, so tiny, and there's a lot of movement in them too. So, and keeping the ball in play, leaving yourself in good spots is going to be at an absolute premium. And I don't know, it's just fun to see new courses, right? I can't remember the last time this place hosted a major event, but like between this and like Southern Hills a little earlier this year, like it's fun to see new venues. So
Yeah.
it's like stuff like that, right? Like the PGA Tour could do so
Right.
much more. It's like I'm never gonna try to say like, oh, the PGA Tour is perfect, but there's enough goodness in there that it's like, why can't we do more stuff like this kind of thing?
Sure. And the resources, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not hurting for cash either, and they got some of the best minds and just what they can pull from some of the architects in the game now. And that's something that's kind of caught my interest the last like year or so. That was kind of unanticipated, but it's just really interesting to see how like especially like this golf course, like being as old as it is, obviously it needed to go through some renovations, and now kind of I believe Gilhan's kind of going back to try and restore it back to it's a form back of like in the early 30s. And so anyway, I just think that's really cool that can stand up to the guys in 2022. So ultimately, man, I'm excited for it. Anything else on that? Because I gotta ask, a follow up to what of my story last week. I don't know if you're open or wanted to talk anything about a tournament golf that you had, as we kind of put where the rubber meets the road, and in our small way, our majors. But anything else? Are you open to discussing, or is that one we just want to wrap up with some Saudi stuff?
I mean, you're more than welcome to get into it. Unfortunately,
Well,
it's the same as it always is.
no, I'm just curious, just and for the listeners and people that have kind of taken seeing us focus on like the mental side. Maybe that's the biggest thing. Maybe you got to tell us even what you shot or the result, but I'm curious how you kind of hung in there mentally, because you called me and we talked after about the round and some of the details of the holes and all that stuff. But I'm just curious on the mental side, like how did you prepare? How did you hold up during, and then kind of the takeaways?
Yeah, man, it's tough because the end result is not too different from like previous experiences, right, in a tournament like this. But like I do feel that going into the tournament, I was focused more on just trying to control what I can control, and what that is sort of my mindset
Mhm.
and sort of the mental aspect of things. And I feel like started off the round, it was a great example of the way I started off the round. So the first tee shot, it's trying to set the stage. I mean, it's hard to explain on a podcast, but basically the first tee shot, the tee box sits, I don't know, at least 60 yards above the fairway, give or take. And it's a pretty hard dog leg left, and you can kind of hit whatever club you want, right? Like lots of guys were taking driver through it, and really cutting off the corner. A lot of those same guys had to then come back and hit a third off the number one tee. So, I mean, I going in, I'd kind of committed to hitting iron. And it's like, okay, if I hit an iron on an aggressive line, I should leave myself with a fairly reasonable approach in. And I mean, I did not hit a good swing at all. I had a little tournament jitteriness off that first tee, and I kind of chunk blocked a bailout iron shot. So I left myself like 200 yards in. And I think in the past that would have really done me in, right? Just to be left with something like that coming in on a second shot on my first hole. And I mean, I found a way to put the ball on the green to like 50 feet. And in the past, I'm like, oh, 50 feet, I'm going to three putt this for sure to start off, right? But had an awesome two putt to make par. And then, I mean, just really plodded along well for the first few holes, had a nice couple nice up and downs, and it was putting really well, and everything felt like good, right? And then in
Mhm.
the past, like the first couple holes had really sort of derailed me in sort of my qualifying tournaments. And so I thought, all right, we're kind of sort of past that, right? And I mean, just unfortunate. I don't really know. I don't really know what happened on this tee shot
You
that
blacked
that
out.
ultimately that did me in, but it was just a miss that I had not really been having at all. I
Mhm.
just straight sky ball, block right, out of play. So then I had like 220 in, side hill lie, tried to do too much and hit that one out of play, right? And then that make a triple there, and then so that was kind of shaking me, but I still felt like, okay, that was just one hole, just save it to that, and who knows what'll happen. But sure enough, the very next tee shot, I skied it again just out of nowhere, right? And made double. So it put me down to five over. And I don't know, I felt like I did battle. I still battled pretty good. I thought I kind of got shortchanged on some putts, but I mean, that's kind of always the go-to, right? But so made, but I mean, after all that, I still thought I played pretty well. There was just one or two holes that I felt like, man, that was really sloppy. I shouldn't have made a bogey there, um, and ultimately came up a couple shots short. And it really comes back to just you cannot make a triple and a double on the card and expect to qualify. Because really, like going into it, my hope was, okay, if I could make 12, I was thinking like 11 or 12 pars, five bogeys, and maybe a birdie. Like that was kind of in the back of my mind. That was sort of my goal. Like if I had that on my scorecard, I felt like I had a pretty good chance of qualifying.
Mhm.
And like looking at my card, I ended up, I made, I made the five bogeys. I made two birdies, made a lot of pars, and it was just the two holes where I made a double and a triple, right? So if I turn those two holes into two bogeys and then take away two of those other bogeys that were just kind of sloppy, that I
Mhm.
was just being dumb, it's like I qualify. So it's like it's tough because you look back on it, it's like that wouldn't have been too much of a stretch
Yeah.
to qualify. But at the same time, like I mean, that's very much golf. So it's also hard not to think like, I mean, maybe that's just kind of the player I am, right? Where it's like I really need a lot of things to go right in a setting like that to ultimately meet some of my objectives. So I don't know, just some, not to go too like sitting on the couch and you being my psychologist or whatever, but
How do you feel about that? Oh.
it's like, yeah, I still want to qualify for the stadium. It's definitely definitely a goal, but it is tough to invest so much of the life. I mean, not just money, but time and
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing stuff away from like the family and even like putting work and stuff on. I mean, putting work on the back burner is always a good thing, but it's like, I mean, I've been so consumed by it for the last couple months, and I felt really good, and I mean, still feel decent about how I played. But to look back
Yeah.
on it, it's like, man, didn't qualify, so it's like, now what, right? So it's like it's definitely going through a bit of a lull and trying to rediscover the love of the game. But luckily, we got enough opportunities coming up where, I mean, you and I are playing in a big 4-man scramble tournament coming up.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that on the calendar to kind of stay motivated. It's like, okay, that's what I'm practicing for. And even, I mean, did something I also kind of out of my comfort zone, signed us up to play in another sort of big team event, 2-man, you and me, that we got coming up in the
Yeah.
fall. So,
The Utah four ball. Yeah.
so,
I'm
so
pumped. I've never
stuff
done that. So
stuff like that, right? It's like, okay, giving me stuff on the calendar to circle to look forward to. Cause yeah, it I'm not gonna lie, it was just hard driving off of the course thinking like, well, I mean, there's that. It was definitely there. The qualifying score to get in was even a little higher than I was expecting. So it's like, man, everything was kind of there for me. And it's hard not to feel that I sort of, crap the bed again. But it's
well,
golf.
man, there's a lot
Not
to
to get
unpack there, but
not to get on a nice soapbox all
no, that's
depressing and
why
whatnot,
I,
but
I knew what I was getting into when I asked, but I just think that, ultimately I think you're making the strides on something that, like you had mentioned, like plagues you, it plagues me, it plagues a lot of players of just the letting one swing or letting one hole kind of derail. But it sounds like here, I mean, you kind of get like, yeah, it affected it. I mean, it's hard to not, you can't just ignore a triple. Like I totally get that. In a qualifier, that's hard to ignore. But I mean, it sounds like you still stuck with it and battled back and made 2 additional birdies, which is big. So I think that there's, obviously not the result we wanted, but I think there's improvement there. And I think in fact, I know it will rear its head and it will show merit soon. And in some way, I don't know what that will look like or the timing, but I know it will, because I think this is just, again, this is why I'm just so passionate about that, and the mental side of just like, man, there's so much power in the mind, and it's still something that we're working its muscle just as much as you work those pumped biceps. Like it takes effort and it takes reps, and these are the reps that I think will ultimately pay dividends. So anyway, I appreciate you humoring us there, but I think it is all good. It is all good things.
it's tough looking back on it because the 2 big numbers I made were they were the 2 holes I was most worried about
Mm-hmm.
going into it. I Some people would probably have different opinions. Like in my mind, they're the 2 hardest holes on the course. At least from my just the way it sets up for my game. So it's like, I mean, if I know that, would I have been better off just a couple 4-iron stingers off the tee, right? And just almost like playing to make bogey,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, yeah, it's tough because it's like, well, I'm accepting 2 bogeys there. That means I kind of have to work extra hard on the other 16 holes. But it's like, I look back on the round and it's like, I handled the rest of the golf course fine. Should I have just tried to play for fives on both of those holes to begin with, right? Or does like just accepting that mean I start pressing on some of the other holes? So I don't know. I, I guess I'm questioning my strategy a little bit. And I mean, I should have more confidence in my ability to hit a 3-wood in play, but
I
I don't
mean,
know. I really don't know.
I think it's a good point, and I think that may be worth some exploration down the line and different opportunities, because I know I just feel like I don't know, it's such a, especially when we're talking about tournament golf, talking about qualifying, qualifiers for what, if we're just qualifying for a state am, or if we're trying to qualify, if it's a US Open qualifier, whatever it is, there's something special and kind of uniquely, pressure about qualifiers. And I think it is an interesting, tactic or thought on how to approach that. Like, I usually personally don't like going into a golf round with like a number in mind. Like, I usually don't, but I also am a kind of a firm believer in, like, you know, playing to, not just make the cut, but playing to be like a for sure, like, person in. And in my mind, I felt like, 2 over par at my qualifier. I thought it would actually be a lot better than it actually was. There were some really good players and some good scores out there, but it did allow me, and I ended up ultimately shooting 3, which same thing. I look back on like 1 swing and 2 other shots, like 2 other putts that could have easily been eliminated on like a normal day. But I just, for whatever reason, I think there's power in kind of hovering around where you're at. Like Brooks talked about it, right? Like when he first came out, he just wanted to make cuts. And every week he was right there at the cut line, chipping. Like, he would make a few, miss a few, but he's always right there at the cut line. And then he started to make more cuts. And then it was like, okay, now I want a top 10. Started making some top 10. And then it's okay, now I want to win. And he starts winning. So I think there's like power in that, and kind of what we're projecting and what we want. So I think that there's merit to what we were talking about and what you're talking about. Okay, I want to make 11 pars and, just this many bogeys. But I also, you can play devil's advocate and be like, well, that's, if you do make a 7, then you've kind of messed up your whole plan. And then what? Then you got to adjust on the fly. It's like, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. But I don't know. I just think it's really interesting on how we handle that. But I don't know. Ultimately, I think, it'll be for your good. And I think you're getting better at it. So anyway, thanks for the insight. We'll continue to work on it. We'll have more stuff, more content, more stories, and especially for the 4-ball, it'll be some good competition and really, really good for us. So, all right. Is that sufficient for tonight? Did we talk about the Saudis enough? Did we talk about, this? And that's the thing. I still feel like there are so many other topics that are worth a whole podcast episode, but we're not even touching. Just shows what a wild era we're in right now.
Yeah, no, it's there's so much going on, and it's kind of like, what do you want to talk about? I feel like we could go hours on just about anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm really, really excited and hopeful. I think more excited for this US Open than I've typically get about US Opens. Just hopeful for a good event, and want to dig in more and do a little more research on the course, and then hopefully we get to have a good conversation about it next week.
Yeah, I like it. Well, if there's anything else of shout outs, hate to see any
I mean, besides
hate to see a triple. You
yeah,
hate to see that.
You really hate to see the triple. It was almost as bad as some of those team names and logos.
Oh, bro, I don't know. We can go that
LIV
far,
Golf
but come on,
tossed out
Fireball.
there.
It's bad.
Oh
But
boy.
anyway, we'll be back for more. Again, always a pleasure, and appreciate the insight and humoring us on the qualifier. And yeah, I think, we're set up for some good drama, and hopefully it holds true. But we'll watch, and we'll be waiting anxiously, and be back next week. So, Shawn, as always, appreciate it, man. It's always a pleasure. And the listeners, just keep striving.
Peace.